Hi, boys and girls. Mrs. Burkett here to talk with you about this week's poetry vocabulary that we're going to be working on. The poetic elements are the tools that poets use to help express their feelings and thoughts. And so you should have your poetry vocabulary book out. And the first thing you want to do is put your name on it. And I'm going to begin by quickly pointing out some of the elements from the poems we read yesterday. Hopefully, you read them yesterday. We read them in class. Welcome spring, waiting through the winter for the snow to melt away. Then finally it happened. Spring came to save the day. And right away, we notice that there are some words that have the same sound, away and day. The browns and whites are leaving, replaced by pink and blue, purple, yellows, and greens, just to name a few. There it is again. Now, they're not spelled the same, blue and few, but they do rhyme, right? The air is feeling fresher, gardens are waiting for love. Birds are chirping loudly from the tops of trees above. And again, we have rhyme of love and above. It has the same sound. Bugs are out from hiding, windows open all day. Fresh air all around us, time to get outside and play. So there's that rhyme again of day and play. Now, rhyming is one of the first things you learn in kindergarten and first grade. So I know you know that vocabulary word of rhyming. And then we had spring showers, okay? And so I want to just stop here with spring showers for a minute and talk about our vocabulary words. Now, you have them on your list at the bottom of your spelling words. And I'm just going to say them first: rhythm, rhyme, repetition, simile, alliteration, personification. There are some big words here. Alliteration, and that's LL. It kind of got squeezed in the print. Onomatopoeia. Oh my, are you going to have fun saying that word? Onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia. And then hyperbole. So on your paper, we have a definition that says rhythm, the repeating accents or beats in a poem. So accents or beats. Rhyme, having the same ending sounds. And we saw that. We just learned that and we knew that. That was one of the elements that we've learned for several years now. Repetition, repeating words or phrases in a poem. I don't know if we saw any repetition. There definitely was some rhythm to that poem that we just read. Simile, compares two things with the words like or as. Alliteration, I'm going to zoom this in a little bit. Repeating same sounds at the beginning of words. So when the letters are the same at the beginning. Personification, an object taking on human form. So when we give objects that are not human qualities or human abilities, that's called personification. And a lot of times poets like to do that to make their poems interesting. Onomatopoeia, action words that make the sound. Boom, crack, zoom, zip. Hyperbole, exaggerating to make a point. So these are poetic elements, and I'm just going to show you some things with the poetic elements. Now, the first word I'm going to show you is not one of our vocabulary words, but it is a word that anyone who wants to read and understand poems needs to know. A stanza is a group of lines together. Here's stanza 1. Flowers are orange, flowers are pink, flowers are pretty, don't you think? So we definitely see stanzas in this poem. Each of the stanzas is only two. There are only 2 lines in each stanza. And we saw in the poem that we just read that those stanzas each only had just 2 lines, okay? But sometimes a lot of poems can have more than 2 lines in a stanza. Flowers are orange, flowers are pink, flowers are pretty, don't you think? Stanza 2, flowers look nice, flowers smell good. I'd pick all the flowers if I could. So stanzas, we know, are separated by this blank space between the lines, okay? So the blank space, but it also helps us when we're talking about the stanzas? Well, in stanza 3 or in stanza 2 or in stanza 4 or 5, and it helps us identify different things in poems by identifying those stanzas, okay? They're like verses. Now, poetry, we know, does not look like a paragraph. There's not just one indent and then the lines go clear to the end. We can tell poetry because it's kind of shortened and it starts in different ways, okay? There's different indentions. Another one of our vocabulary words is rhyme, lines that end in the same sound. There was a little mouse who had a little house, mouse and house. They rhyme, and we know that word. That word is a word we've heard before in school. And then we have the word rhythm, the beat of a poem that can be clapped. He drums tap tap and we all clap. Do you hear that? He drums tap tap and we all clap. So there's a rhythm or a beat to the poems when in a lot of poems. There's a pattern that we can follow. Repetition is easy. Repetition comes from the word repeat, words that repeat in a poem. Fish, fish in the sea, fish, fish, they see me. Was there repetition in this first poem that we read? I don't think so. There was lots of different words, but this poem, if we read that yesterday, there was definitely some repetition in the poem. So we had pitter, patter, drip, drip, drop. And pitter patter kept repeating itself, didn't it? Repeat, repeat, repeat. And I hope I'm using the right color coding on that. We're going to do some color coding, and I want to make sure I'm following. Nope. Rhythm is the green. So I should have been coloring that in pink. And I'll show you how to do this. You just follow along. So repetition is when the words keep repeating themselves over and over. And this poem, Spring Showers, that you read yesterday, has a lot of repetition, doesn't it? Even the splish, splish and the drip, drip is repeated, right? And the glop, glop here got repeated, didn't it? So repetition is when the words get repeated. Fish, fish in the sea, fish, fish, they see me. And that makes a poem interesting, right? Here's another example of repetition. Repetition is when the words or phrases are repeated in a poem. Birds sang when the sun came up. Flowers bloomed when the sun came up. Children laughed when the sun came up. Bees buzzed when the sun came up. All was happy when the sun came up. So a lot of songs have repetition, and that's what poetry is. It's the beginning of a song. So we have rhyme, rhythm, repetition, and then we have a word, simile. Simile is a comparison of two things using like and as or as. Now, not just poets. Poets are not the only authors that use similes. Good writers use similes to help us visualize what they're writing about. By saying his teeth are as white as snow, we know his teeth are very, very white, okay? So whenever a simile is used, it helps the reader really get a picture in their mind of what we're trying to describe or talk about. And all good writers use similes, the word like or as, in a poem. Are there any similes here? If I were to color code and make similes blue, I saw the rain came down like someone wringing out a mop. There's my word like. So there's my simile. And the author is giving me a picture of like a mop. If someone's squeezing a mop and the rain, the water's just running out of it. The rain was coming out of the sky just like someone's wringing out a mop and squeezing the water out of a mop. So the word like is our signal for similes. Another word that we're going to be looking at with our poetry is alliteration. And that's the repeated beginning consonant sound. Patty picked a purple popsicle. P, 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 P. Oh, well, we had that in Spring Showers, didn't we? And I'm just going to color those P-Ps, pitter, patter. And look here, drip, drip, D, D, D. And then we had the splish, splish, splash, S, S, S. And then the author used gl, G, G, G. And alliteration really makes poetry fun. So think about maybe I could use some alliteration in some of the poems that I write this week. Okay, so today, when we're writing our acrostic, our spring acrostic, maybe you could find a way to start every word. If you could find words that all start with the same letter, P or S or G or D, green grass grows lush in the spring, right? So G would be a word you could use over and over. So that's called alliteration. A-L-L, alliteration. Okay? And then our next word that we want to look at is personification. Person. You see the word person in front of it? Saying an object or animal can do what people can do. The sun played hide and seek. Can the sun play hide and seek? No, the sun can't play hide and seek. So that's called personification, when we give human qualities to things that are not human. So I wonder, is there any personification in these two poems that we've already read? I don't know. I kind of wondered about gardens. The author in this poem said, gardens are waiting for love? Can gardens feel love? I don't think so. So I'm going to get my orange crayon out. And I don't think human beings are people who feel love. Gardens don't feel love, do they? We're kind of using personification. And spring saved the day? Can spring save the day? I think people can save the day, but I don't think spring can really save the day. So that's an example of giving human qualities or abilities to things that are not human. Personification. Okay? And then the next word we have on our list is that big fancy word. Can we say it? Onomatopoeia. The O is kind of silent here. Look at those. 4 vowels in a row. O-E-I-A. And we just say onomatopoeia. Okay? Onomatopoeia. It's kind of a fun word to say. It's a word that sounds like an actual sound. So it's kind of action words that the actual word makes the sound smack. Okay? Boom, crash, zip, zoom. Just like we're trying to express. So onomatopoeia are words that sound like the action that they're actually mean. Okay? And then one more word that we want to talk about is hyperbole. And this is when an author makes something seem better or worse than it really is, just exaggerates. These books weigh a ton. I don't know if we had any exaggeration here. Let's see. We sloshed through the mud until the last drop. The sun was shining so bright it made a big rainbow. Well, the sun kind of does make rainbows. Birds chirping loudly. Bugs are out from hiding. Windows are open. Fresh air all around us. I don't think there was any exaggerations here. The browns and whites are leaving. Kind of not. But I'll tell you what. If we go to one of our first poems for this week, April Rain Song, and I'm going to try to zoom in for you so that you can see what we're going to do. We are going to find some exaggerations in April Rain Song, okay? Some ways that an author exaggerated. Now, before we read April Rain Song, I want you to flip back because it says that you're going to do a scavenger hunt to look for these elements. So I'm going to go ahead and read them. I said before, but I'm going to go ahead and read them and then we'll come back. So the two poems we're reading today are April Rain Song by Langston Hughes, okay? And think about how the author used special words, chose just the right words to express their feelings and thoughts. Let the rain kiss you. Let the rain beat upon your head with silver liquid drops. Let the rain sing you a lullaby. The rain makes steel pools on the sidewalk. The rain makes running pools in the gutter. The rain plays a little sleep song on our roof at night. And I love the rain. And then if we go to the next page, another one of the poems from our anthology is Rain Poem by Elizabeth Coatsworth. The rain was like a little mouse, quiet, small, and gray. It pattered all around the house, and then it went away. It did not come, I understand, indoors at all until it found an open window and left tracks across the seal. Do you see that? So, what I want you to do is follow along, get your crayons before we start filling in our vocabulary booklet. Get your crayons, and I am going to give you a color code to mark these different poetic elements, okay? So we're going to color our rhyme words yellow. We're going to mark our rhythm with some green hash marks. We're going to show repetition with pink, and you can pause the video until you get these words colored. Imagery is not really one of our vocabulary words, so we're just going to circle one. The author chose words that kind of paints a picture in our mind, words that help our mind see things, that describe fluttery butterfly pink in the sky, okay? So those words that describe things. Similes, we're going to color blue anytime we see like or as. Hyperbole, when the author exaggerates, extreme exaggeration to try to express a point, we're going to make it purple. Okay? Remember, you can pause if you need to. I'll back it back out a minute. And then alliteration, that repeated sound at the beginning of the words, for friends, for found free food. We are going to color that red. So I'm going to color that red. And then onomatopoeia, those words like chirp, 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 with the birds, sound like the noise or the action, that I'm going to make that brown onomatopoeia, that big fancy word. And then personification, when we give non-human objects or things human abilities, make them seem like they have human ability or qualities. Personification, we're going to color that orange. We will color that one orange, okay? So I'll guide you on this one, and we can go back and look and reference it, okay? But did you hear any of those sounds? Now, I have my poetry vocabulary book also, because not only do I want to color code it, but I want to write the examples in my book. So, did anybody hear any rhyme in April Rain Song? Were there any words that rhyme? Let me back it out a minute. I didn't hear any words that rhyme. You, drops, lullaby, sidewalk, gutter, night, rain. I don't hear any rhyming words there at all, so I can't color anything yellow or write rhyme examples of words that sound the same. What about, let's flip over, back over to rain poem. Are there any rhyming words here? Let's see. Mouse, gray, house, wet, up. I hear it. Mouse and house, gray and away. What about in the second stanza? Understand and until and seal. There they are. Okay, I just colored them yellow. And I'm going to go ahead and get my pencil now and write those examples in my poetry vocabulary book. So words that sound the same, that are often the last word on the line. I found some rhyming words right here in Rain Poem, and I'm going to write them. I'm going to write mouse, and then I'm going to put a hash mark and write, what was the word that rhymed with mouse? House. And then I had gray. And I'll put a hash mark and I'll write sway. And then we had the big word under, and just the last part, stand. Now remember, you can pause the video if you need, if it takes you a little longer to write it, but I'm trying not to have the video be too long for us. Understand and end. So just that last part of understand and then we had until and window seal. So until, and then I hashtag and I write seal. So 4 sets of rhyming words in that poem, Rain Poem. Okay? So I've given my examples in my vocabulary booklet of rhyming that I found. Now, what about rhythm? Was there any rhythm in our first poem, April Rain Song? And I'm just going to help me so we can talk about it. I'm going to mark out and mark stanza. And maybe before we move on, this is stanza 1, this is stanza 2, and they both have 2 lines, don't they? And then this last one, it only has 1 line. Do you see that? Now, this poem did not rhyme, okay? So it's a poem, and I want you to write this. This is a bonus. It is called free verse, okay? Poems that do not rhyme. They do not rhyme. Please write this on your paper. This is a bonus word that you may need to know when we start talking about these poems a little bit more on Friday. Free verse do not rhyme. Poems that do not rhyme. And I believe our Brain Pop video talked about free verse, poems that do not rhyme. They just kind of tell a story. So I don't really hear a rhythm here. Let the rain kiss you. Let the rain beat upon your head. Word beats in there, but I can't clap out the same thing. What about on rain poem? Can I hear a beat? Let's hear. The rain was like a little mouse, quiet, small, and gray. It pattered all around the house and then it went away. I'm going to get my green crayon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 8 beats in that first line. It pattered, let me count it. It pattered all around the house. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And there are 8 beats in that line. Do you think it's the same every other line? It did not come. I understand. I believe it is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 again. It found an open window and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on open, 2 syllables, window, 2 syllables, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 again. So it definitely has a pattern. Even these lines, quiet, small, and gray, they have, well, that one only has kind of 5, but I think it's kind of 6. Quiet, small, and gray. And then it went away. Indoors at all until left tracks across the seal. So it kind of has the same pattern every other line, doesn't it? So in my vocabulary book, the beat of the poem, I found an example in Rain Poem that every other line has the same number of beats. And in this particular, we saw 8 and then 6. 8 and then 6. 8 and then 6, right? So that's the beat of the poem. The rhythm is how we can pick up on following it and clapping it out. Good songwriters always look for rhythm, and fun poems to read have some rhythm to them. So they choose the right number of words to match each line, okay? So we found rhyme, we found rhythm, and now we want to see, is there any repetition in these poems? Let's see. Did it repeat at all? So I'm going to go back to my April Rain Song poem. Was there any repetition? I sure see repetition. So I am going to get my pink crayon. Let the rain, let the rain, let the rain. The rain, the rain, the rain. Definitely have repetition here. So in my vocabulary book for repetition, I'm going to go ahead and write, let the rain was repeated 3 times. That is an example of repetition in one of my poems. And the other example of repetition was the rain, the rain, the rain. So I'm going to write that too. The rain was repeated 3 times. Okay. And I could put a little 3x here, S, 3x, S, 3 times, just to help me know what I found in my poems, right? Okay, let's see. We are supposed to do at least 4 of our pages today in our vocabulary book: rhyme, rhythm, repetition, and we need to find simile. Now, we might come back to these poems Thursday and find some other examples of these other words, but we'll stick with these 4 today, and then we'll talk about alliteration, personification, and the other ones. Is there any like or as? Like or as? Like or as? I don't see in it. I love the rain, but no like or as the rain. Let's look at our rain poem. Oh, I see a like. Do you see a like? Like the rain was like a little mouse. I've got my blue crayon out, and there it is. The rain was like a little mouse. So the author is comparing the rain to just a quiet little mouse, just kind of dribbling. Have you ever heard the rain like a quiet little mouse? So my example in my vocabulary book for simile is the rain was like a little mouse. Oops, I maybe should have went down to the next line. The rain was like a little mouse. And I colored the simile blue, okay? So those are some of our vocabulary words, and we will read 2 more poems on Thursday, and we might find some more examples of rhythm, rhyme, repetition, and similes, but we'll also be on the lookout for alliteration. Did you see any alliteration? The same sound being used over and over in these poems? Or what about personification? Was there any objects that was given human qualities in April Rain Song and Rain Poem? Maybe onomatopoeia or hyperbole, exaggeration? I hope you're enjoying learning how to think about poems and become a good poet yourself. Talk to you soon.